Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Geek Warning podcast. It's time for another version of Info Review, and we've been a little bit sporadic on these. I'd say we missed a few months, but for good reason. We've been spending the time to catch up on the reviews we've promised, and I feel like we're in a good place now with that, and so it's time to talk about the things of the products that are keeping us busy and that we plan to review, and things to keep an eye out for. And for that, we've got the rare opportunity where we managed to get the entire team together. The entire tech team is here. We've got Ronan, Alex, Suvi, and Josh, and spread across various time zones. But I think it's probably worth noting that there may be a little bit of background noise because Josh, you're not in America at the moment. Where are you?
No, I'm not. You could probably hear French speaking in the background. I'm in the Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, making my way over to Germany for the Bespoke show later this week.
Nice. All right. And then Suvi, I don't think you're home at the moment either. You're Finland?
I'm technically, I'm home.
You are
very
home.
much
Okay.
home.
One of your homes. Yeah.
But yeah, I am in Finland at the moment.
Okay. All right. And then Alex, Ronan, whereabouts do we find you at the moment?
I'm at home now. Whether I'm at home when you're hearing this is up for debate, because I'm off to Germany and then the Netherlands later this week for a factory visit and then Gravel World Championships. So
awesome.
If this drops later in the week, I probably won't be at home either.
Oh, awesome. All right.
I'm at home, but it didn't look like I was going to get home, and I'm afraid to ever leave again. I had a flight on Friday that was so rough that the pilot came over to the announcer after we landed, and the pilot said, "We made it, folks." So that was it gives you an indication of how rough it was. And then on the way home, there was like 4 trees blocking 4 different routes home. I really didn't think I was going to make it.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you're there, and yeah, I've got no complaints at all, other than that I'm recording at 9 p.m. on a public holiday. But hey, let's talk about some bikes.
Okay, you win, Dave.
Before we get started, I think it's probably worth noting that this episode is going to be partly free for all listeners. However, if you want the full version, then you will need to be a member of Escape Collective. So head to escapecollective.com/join. And yeah, consider becoming a member and gain access to everything we do at Escape Collective, including all the reviews that we're about to talk about upcoming. So with that, let's go around the virtual room and talk about what bike we each rode last. Alex, what did you ride last?
Oh, wow. It's a bit of a combo at the minute. So I'm using my personal SL8 at the minute as a bit of a test mule. It's got quite a few different products on it that the reviews should be dropping relatively soon. But in terms of review bikes, I've probably been spending the most time on the Canyon Grizl with the DT Swiss suspension fork. Just getting up to speed with that and getting some thoughts together on how I feel about a bouncy front end on a gravel bike.
You should join the party of the bouncy rear end too.
And then like the nice flat bars.
Yeah, flabble bike. Suvi, what was the last bike you rode?
Well, are we talking about review bikes or just bikes in general?
Let's go review bikes.
The Basso SV was the last one I rode.
All right. Getting nearer to wrapping that one up, I take it?
Yeah. It's been long time coming.
Okay. All right. I think we'll get into that one a bit more soon.
Yeah.
Josh, you're having just traveled across the world or across continents. I think you probably haven't ridden for the last 12 hours or so, but what was the last bike you're on?
Well, I'm going to give kind of a Ronan answer for this one, I think, because I can't say what it was because it's not released yet. Yeah. So, but yeah, just packed up a bike to have someone that's at my house right now ship back this week to the company that sent it to me because it needs to go on to another editor, I guess, before it comes out in November. But I think I can give a hint. It was featured in my Sea Otter coverage. So have at it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Huh. Might have to set up like a bingo card or something for that.
Yeah, right.
Ronan, what about you?
I did ride a bike that I can't speak about. Yes, Josh, you're right. But the most recent bike I rode was the Slate, the SL8.
With Campagnolo.
With Campagnolo, yes.
Yeah.
And a bit like London buses, I've waited 2 years for a Campagnolo review group set, and 2 have come along at once.
Okay.
But we'll get into that as well, I guess.
Yeah, nice. All right. And then, I guess for me, I think Cervelo Aspero 5 was the bike I did my last ride on. So yeah, using it, playing with it as a road bike, and then got to spend some more time on it as an actual gravel bike. But yeah, I think we might talk about that one as well later. So
Davey, what is it like? Like because this is like always the question is like, can you have one bike, and I mean, without covering old ground over and over and over again, specifically on the Aspero? How you find it on the road?
It's actually very impressive as a road bike. It is like, it comes with 42 millimeter wide, effectively road tires, like Vittoria slick tires on it, which is an interesting choice, but I think it aligns pretty well with where the bike feels really great. And it does do remarkably well on the road. It is actually competitively quick, even with such wide tires. I would say there's probably a little bit of understeer as a result of such wide road tires, but I don't know. It's this ultra efficient feeling bike. Like there's no hiding that it is a true race bike. But off road, it's a big difference when I'm coming off like something like a Santa Cruz Stigmata, which is a very progressive sort of mountain bike inspired gravel bike, and then you jump onto the Cervelo Aspero. They're just kind of they're not quite at polar opposites, but they're not far off either. It's a very, very different experience off road. So yeah, more time needed to articulate that, but dare I say, if you're shopping for a progressive style gravel bike, then the Aspero is in it, and if you're shopping for a gravel bike that feels like a road bike, then the Aspero probably is closer to what you should be looking at. So yeah,
like I've just always wanted that, like Crux, the Willier Rave, the original one, so many different bikes down through the years where you're like, oh, you could throw a set of road tires on that or have a second set of wheels and it would double up. It just never really does. It's just always on the road.
There's always compromises, and I think fundamentally, like, the biggest compromise will be there's a few, but wheelbase is a big one. In order to fit such big tires, they need to increase wheelbase, and that does give a bit of a slower, different handling characteristic than a pure road bike. The other big compromise is going to be gearing. So, if you're swapping wheels and you really want to turn your gravel bike into a road bike, you kind of need to change out the gearing, and then that becomes quite an ordeal. And by the time you swap wheels and change the chainring, you're probably arguably spending enough time that you're not going to do it too regularly. So I think that's the real barrier to overcome on this stuff. But well, Alex, you mentioned the Grizl, which is kind of like a progressive mountain bike inspired gravel bike. So yeah, what's your experience there? I mean, I think you spend a bunch of time on road bikes, and I think you've done an opinion piece about how for your area gravel bikes don't always make the most sense for you. But how are you getting on with that thing?
I think for where I live, it's just reaffirmed my opinion. I don't think it's changed it. Ultimately, there's like you were saying about the Aspero, there's just a lot of compromise if we're comparing like a suspension gravel bike to a mountain bike. And where I live, a lot of what you'd consider gravel is perfectly fine on like a 40 mil rigid gravel bike. It's not particularly technical, but what it does do is it does take you past a lot of trailheads. If you were to drop into any of them, my 120 mil Epic would be a far more fun tool and more capable. So I think it's definitely more a case of matching the bike to the geography of where you're going to ride. I did get to ride the Grizl when I was out in Girona earlier in the year and ride on some more technical terrain that's probably where the bike would be better suited. And I have to say the DT Swiss fork is really good, really, really supple. It's got a really nice feel, and it's that classic cliche, but it does feel like it offers more travel than it has without kind of getting in the way. The lockout lever's a little bit of a cumbersome addition. To be honest, if I'm on a gravel ride where I need a suspension fork, the likelihood that I'm locking it out all that often is fairly unlikely.
Yeah.
But then I think the other thing that's worth talking about with that Canyon is we thought we'd got away from weird, horrible handlebars when they updated the Grail. They got rid of the hover bar. But it turns out they just wanted to move the horrible bar onto a different model. So,
Can you describe that bar?
He just did. Horrible.
Yeah, it's like adding TT extensions, but they're at the same height as the bar. They don't raise at all. And they kind of create this weird angular donut out in front of your bars. Which Canyon say, and I haven't put this element to the test yet, but it's another mounting point to add like a larger bar bag so it can hang out in front without getting in the way too much. And also they've created their own little storage box which fits in the middle of this donut. There are issues with that. When I used it in Girona, you can mount a bike computer to the top of this box that sits in the middle, but then adding that weight whenever you go over a sizable bump, the thing just opens and then it injects anything you have stored on your bars across the trail.
It actually kind of sounds dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a bag opening in front of your front wheel and dumping the contents.
Yeah, and also it's just not great if you're using it as they intend for like an extra mounting point, or you use the bag that fits in the middle. It kind of also removes the hand position because there's either a bag underneath it or a bag in the middle. So you can't really wrap your hands around it to fully grip the bar and be in control. So yeah, it's one of those where if I was buying a Grizl, I would try and find a version without that bar.
It does sound like it meets its name though, being the escape bar. It just lets all the contents escape. So it's it also does remind me, as a bit of a tangent, just how many brands are using the word escape in products these days, which seems like a new thing, like in the last 12 months or so. But I think I mean, Canyon, Scott, Open, I think I'm forgetting at least 3 other brands that I've shared in recent time as sort of brands that are loving the word. So you're welcome, maybe. Anyway, what else did we have?
I was just going to say that, like, when I was in Girona and I rode the tracker with the suspension fork. I do actually find, we won't go into the details, but I've broken my right wrist 6 times. So on particularly rough rides that are more than 2 or 3 hours, the fatigue through the bars does start to play havoc with my wrist. And I have to say, there is something in an active suspension fork for just damping out that kind of harshness and vibration. And I think the tracker was just over 3.5 hours to me, and I got to the end with a wrist that worked, which is untypical for a ride of that length over that sort of terrain. So I definitely do think that in the right situations, there is merit to having an active suspension fork.
Yes, fully agree.
I mean, Dave, I might just skip ahead for a second because we're going to get into things we would like to test in our review. And one thing that I would like to get my hands on, but probably won't now, given that you and Kaylee have both had your hands all over it, is the Trek checkout.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just listened to your podcast with the folks at Trek about that bike, and just so much of it appealed to me with the riding that I do. And I like sort of to your point there about, active suspension and the Grizl and all that. I mean, suspension's obviously headed for gravel. I don't think hardtail suspension or a front suspension fork only makes sense. I think if we're going to do this, we just go the whole way. And that's why I'm so excited about the checkout. The one part of that, kind of just, again, it might be too soon. Trek might never get to make another bike like this. But throughout that podcast, Dave, they were talking about it being, how much faster and how much more energy saving and all this, that, and the other. But then it's a bike designed pretty much just for touring, where you shouldn't care about speed and
geometry wise.
Yeah. And so just while we're on the topic of suspension, for where I live, I don't think, Alex, you're saying where you live, the Grizl doesn't really make sense. Where I live, it doesn't make sense, but in the opposite direction, that it's not enough suspension. Yeah, an active suspension, full sus gravel bike, I think, that's really the dream for me.
Yeah. I keep going in circles in this. Like 3 years ago, I built myself like a World Cup level hardtail, thinking it was the perfect gravel bike for my local terrain. And then it, as you expect, it just dulled the terrain to the point that I didn't want to then ride that terrain that I'd planned to build it for. And it just feels like you're riding a mountain bike around on the road, because you literally are. And so I ended up buying a gravel bike shortly after that, and sort of, going in a circle that I'd thought I'd left the loop of, and bought a gravel bike, and then much preferred it because it just felt, and it was much more efficient on, the road sections that connect the trails, and then the trails were more interesting. And spending my time on the checkout, I worry I'm kind of back in the loop that I was trying to avoid, where the off-road sections now feel really efficient and really fast and more comfortable and more controlled than like on rough fire trails. I'm going to say the checkout is probably the most comfortable bike, short of like a long travel gravity oriented mountain bike. Like, it is noticeably more comfortable than doing it on an XC bike, because that suspension is just so supple and so good at small bump compliance. But then once you hit the road, I'm kind of just sitting there feeling like I'm effectively pedaling a mountain bike around, because it's got 2.2 inch tires and the position's really upright.
2.2 inch tires and the position's really upright. And it's also not active suspension. So throw in a set of 40 or 45 mil tires. Like flight attendant or something like that.
Sure. Okay. It's not, electronic suspension. Yeah.
Throw in narrower tires, racing geometry, And I think then the only two things that are standing our way in terms of full suspension gravel is, well, only one thing really, is weight. And actually, I think the speed that you could gain from a full suspension setup would far outweigh whatever the penalty is for that weight.
Yeah, so there's a few other things that I'll get into with my review. I'll keep them to myself for now, but a few other compromises. But yeah, just to put that geometry into perspective, like my own gravel bike's a Santa Cruz Stigmata, which is not overly aggressive. It's not super racy, even though racers do ride the bike. And I have a 10mm spacer underneath the stem on that. On the Trek, I have it slammed, and it is still 4 centimeters higher than my Stigmata handlebar height. So yeah,
and this is where, like, if Trek are worried about never being able to make this bike again, I mean, they haven't given themselves a fair shot at cracking this segment. I don't think they're trying to. It's like, yeah, we can't go all the way with this, and we're going to try and prove the concept by going a quarter of the way. And does that prove the concept, or does that just hamper your chances of proving the concept?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely like they're clearly going after a bike packer style rider. Josh, what's?
Oh, I was going to ask what Ronan all the way is. Is that putting a 32-inch wheel on it, or?
I mean, you have to save something for future updates, Josh.
Yeah, right. Dave, I also want to know, have you used the rack at all? Have you put any weight on the rack?
No, I've currently been spending most of my time with just like bottle cages and the sliding brackets. I have plans to put the rack back on and spend more time with it loaded up. But when I did have it on, I would say the brief testing I did with it was like rock solid. It felt like it was part of the frame, which is really cool. Yeah, like you can normally put a rack on the bike, and if you like hold the bike by the rack and you shake it, you kind of can get the rack to like either move around or sort of feel out of sync with the frame, and that wasn't the case here. It did feel like just like a section of the frame, which is super cool. So yeah, as someone who absolutely hates the swaying of large saddlebags, I think I'm going to get along pretty well with that rack system. So yeah, one still to test. I've really just been trying to like figure out the like suspension dynamics without the rack, and yeah, also to Ronan's point, I have some plans to like put a narrow handlebar on the thing and put slightly narrow tires on it and see how suitable.
And a negative stem.
And just sort of, yeah, see the use case outside of, I guess, the bike packing application as well. Just sort of how broad this bike can be is sort of my my goal. But yeah, at the moment in its stock setup, if you were to keep all the space underneath the stem, I think I joked to someone the other day that it's the sort of bike that wants to turn every ride into an overnighter. Yeah, it can be out there a long time if you're that high up in the wind. Josh, you previously mentioned that the last bike you rode you can't talk about, but what's a bike that you've been riding that you can talk about?
I have a couple, Dave. As you know, I have a busy few months ahead of me after I get done traveling. A lot of bikes to get out the door, which is good timing for me because the weather and the temperature where I live is just cooling off now, so it's getting into a really nice riding season. But I've been riding a titanium Stinner Refugio for the past couple months on and off. I've had it kind of a while now, so yeah, gonna start penning some thoughts about that bike. Also have a Salsa.
What is that bike?
It is their gravel, kind of like general all-around gravel bike that fits up to about a 50C tire. So it's okay. But it's their titanium offering, built in-house, but really good price point. I think the frame set's like under $3,000 US, so I think around even like 2,800. So it's seemingly a good value for what it is comparatively, to either like custom options or other off-the-shelf titanium options. So that was kind of why it was interesting to me and why I wanted to explore it more. And so yeah, looking forward to expanding thoughts on that one. Yeah. And then I also have a Salsa Spearfish that I've just taken out of the box and started riding the past couple of weeks. It's their kind of shorter travel platform that came out earlier this year. I think that was another Sea Otter launch. So
it's a mountain bike, right?
It's a cross country-ish, down country-ish mountain bike.
Nice. Yeah. What are your early impressions of that?
It's a great bike. I raced it twice at just this local race that we do every week near where I live. Feels lighter. I haven't weighed it yet, but riding it feels lighter and more active than like it feels when I just like lift it up. if that makes any sense at all. But it feels like a very kind of, just a very active pedaler. Like,
how far out's the Steiner review? Stinner. Okay.
I'd really like to get that one out in November as well, but I've got this other embargoed bike that's my my priority for November, and then I'd like to get the Stinner out as well in November, but probably later in the month.
Okay, all right. So maybe the next one of these we record might be able to talk about it as conclusion thoughts. So
sure.
Yeah. Nice. Suvi, lucky last. What's the Basso? I think we might have spoken about that one on the last info review. It's been a while. It was a bit of a process. What's the status on that one?
The bike has taken nearly a year to arrive to me, so it has been talked about plenty of time. And then the bike did arrive. Do you want the whole story? This is going to take the rest of the podcast.
Give us a summary. Give us the
summary.
Yeah, the process that you've gone through, the struggles of the review.
Yeah, the bike arrived after many months of anticipation to the point where I was like, I don't even know if I want to review this bike anymore because it's taken so long. It arrived, and then it had the brakes were just the brake lever just went straight to the bar, so the brakes were not bled, so it was basically unrideable. And then it had 172.5 cranks, which, to be honest, Basso did say they will not stock anything shorter than 170 anyway, but I assumed they would get delivered with the 170 because that's the shortest they would offer. And I definitely, even that is too long for me. So the bike went into the bike shop to get these sorted. Oh, and it also came with a different handlebar and a different seat post that I would have wanted. But the delivery times for those were another few months. So I was like, well, I'll make do with what I have. I got the bike back home from the bike shop. And then the wheels that it has, which are the DT Swiss ARC 1100, they got recalled with a stop ride notice. So I was like, well, no riding this bike.
Was it the ARC or the ERC? ARC or ERC? Was it ERC wheels?
I think it's the ARC. That is, I might need to double check that. I think it's the ARC. Anyway, they got recalled, the wheels. And so I had to wait another couple of weeks for the Italians to send me another set of wheels for the bike, which are another Fulcrum Sharks that are another option, like a build option for this bike. So I eventually got out on the bike after many, many months. And yeah, it's been good to ride.
Is it too cheeky to mention that this is also the bike that you attended a launch for and they didn't have your size available?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so I don't think it's. I think it's been. I mean, yeah, and mine's now. Yeah, I wanted, because the thing is that I obviously could have taken the bike that I had at the launch, but it was too big for me, and then I decided to size down. Mm-hmm. I could have gone 2 sizes down, but the size that I have is correct for me. But again, with the components as well, it was just. It's not exactly ideal, and once I get to writing the review, I will detail what I think of this whole process and the availability of basically the 3 smallest sizes of the cockpit, which is a 1-piece cockpit. They're just not available, or at least seems like they're just take months to get one. So it's really not an ideal situation. If you, you either have to wait for months for these to arrive in stock, or you're buying a bike that just doesn't have the right components for you.
I think this is a pretty interesting topic from like a review bike point of view of like what we do when the bike doesn't fit us perfectly, like whether we test the bike as it's sold or whether we change things out to make it fit us. I mean, what's your approach on that, Suvi? Like, are you forever trying to make these things fit, or are there bikes that you get that are sort of correct for you to comfortably test and feel comfortable on?
Usually I would like play around and tinker, and as much as I can change components, I would make sure that the bike fits me as perfectly as it can. With the Basso, I admit that it reached a point that with other bikes, I would have given it another month or so to sort out. Maybe I could have got another seat post or something for it to make things slightly better instead of slamming the saddle forward more. Yeah. But with this, because it's already taken so long, I know I can make it fit me correct enough that I can ride it. I've ridden it 120k without any issue in terms of like discomfort for me. So I can ride it for solid hours without discomfort. So I feel like I can get an idea of the bike. But obviously it would be great to have a perfectly bike fitted bike every single time. But I think that's not really possible every single time. Otherwise it would take so long to just set up the bike.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like certainly, I typically will try to find, that you can look at a geometry chart and pick the bike with the closest reach and the closest stack and all that. And I find that often brands these days get it pretty close for a given size, as far as speccing an approximately correct crank length or an approximately correct handlebar width or approximately correct stem length, and it's not.
I don't agree.
Well,
I don't
sorry,
agree.
I was going to get to that. So like it's not unnormal. It's not that weird for me to change out like a stem length, but I wouldn't normally go to the to the length of like changing out handlebar widths and that sort of thing just to test a bike. If I feel it's out of proportion to the size or it's out of date, then that is part of the review, because that's how a customer would get it. But yeah, it sounds like that's not really the case in the smaller sizes that you're testing, where proportionally things are more likely to be wrong.
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, as a caveat, yeah, obviously I wouldn't be like, say if I get a gravel bike that has 420 handlebar, which for me, I would not, even on a gravel bike, I just don't like the width. I want a 38 even on gravel. And I wouldn't, if that's the only option that the brand offers to the customer, to like someone who's buying that bike, I would test it with the 42, because I would not want to assume that the person who's buying this bike will swap it to another handlebar. And because you have to pay for that handlebar buying that bike anyway. So you are essentially, that's the bike, how you get it. With Basso, it's slightly different because they do offer that customization. They technically offer you the option to customize this handlebar cockpit, but it's just that it's not available. So,
yeah.
Or that they only offer, say, with the crank length, they don't offer 165 or 160, which also exists. I
mean, not to keep throwing Basso under the bus, but that is a very dated approach to offer the customer to choose a crankset length, but not actually offer a modern crankset lengths. So, Ronan,
I mean,
I see.
To be fair to Basso, there, it might be that they just can't get their hands on shorter cranks as well.
It's not. No.
Okay.
I asked.
Let's not be fair to Basso then.
Well, I asked when I attended the launch. I asked them, why do you not do 165? Because they said that they worked specifically with this bike to revise the geometry and everything. They worked with Bike Fit Studios, and I was like, did it not come up that people would love some sort of cranks? And they were like, nope, we don't think people like anything shorter than 170.
So they used the wrong bike fitters then.
I do not know.
Sounds like it.
They used the same bike fitters that a century ago decided that we only needed 3 sizes.
Possibly.
My take on this, Dave, is that it infuriates me to no end. And I am pretty much at the point where I'll refuse to review an aero bike that comes with a 100mm stem. And I will refuse to review a gravel bike that does the same, because, I mean, we've done an entire podcast, Dave, you and I, over on Performance Process about usable aero and how, the wrong stem length could just like leave you slower on a new bike that is theoretically faster than you were in your previous bike that was maybe more adjustable. But I think even on gravel, I think it's so, like, if your weight distribution is all over the place because you've got this tiny stem, and you're also trying to, adapt a more forward saddle position, which a lot of people are, I mean, it's as good as useless at that point, in my opinion. And so, I'm pretty hard line on this now, if I'm honest.
You're going to trigger my sciatica, Ronan.
And the conclusion I've landed to is, like, if the manufacturer offers a simple and cost-neutral way for the consumer to upgrade or adapt the stem length and bar width, then I will change it to that stem length and bar width that suits me. If not, from now on, I'm just passing on the bike.
Oh, wow.
It's not, it's not worth my time dawdling around the bike that I'm bolt upright on. I'm not getting a proper sense for an aero bike at that point, or a race bike on any terrain.
Kind of probably outside the aero scenario, but I've wondered this. Do you all cut your steer tubes like based on what you want, or do you just put if you can on the bike, if it's not integrated in a way that doesn't have spacers, like independent spacers, you just put a spacer stack on top of the stem? Like, what's your approach there if we're talking about customizations?
Love a little chimney.
Yeah, the chimney stays if it's allowed. There's rare circumstances with some integrated bikes where you can't do that because of like the routing design. You do need to get permission from the brand that you're like, I need a cut the steerer, and plus it's going to look better in the
couldn't
photos.
With the Allied Able was not possible, but on others I'm like, I've got 20 mil or so, or there's some on top of the stuff.
Yep, I think I'm running 50 mil at the moment on the checkout.
For me, it comes down to like what type of a steerer bung they're using, because if I'm going to be clamping into empty steerer tube, then I will. Again, I can not review the bike if you like, but if you want me to review the bike, I want to ride it safely, and so I don't want to be clamping onto an empty steerer tube. Is my own personal take.
Yep, but yeah, certainly like handlebar height wise, we're definitely I would say probably all of us are adjusting the handlebar height, the stem spacer stack, and generally speaking, I'd say I'm lowering it for as much for handling reasons as I am for fit reasons on a lot of the test bikes. Like a lot of bikes come with ample spacer stack, but if you were to ride like a mountain bike at full height, often you end up getting like a light front wheel, or it tends to wash out a bit more. So subjective, obviously. High handlebars are coming back in a mountain bike, but I see Alex laughing there, but I think it's, for me, it's as much a handling thing, trying to get rid of or fix certain handling characteristics, as it is fit.
Yeah, for me it's everything, but I do want to, like, including handling, definitely. That's what I meant about the gravel comment there. But I just want to clarify my position. I'm not saying 100 mil stems are wrong. I'm saying they're wrong for me. And if manufacturers want to offer integrated handlebar and stems, they need to have a program in place where you can easily change that, and it's not going to cost you a penny. And I mean, it costs you a penny even in terms of labor at the shop that you bring it to. Like, as I say time and time again, when I sold Ford Fiestas, you could spec what color stitching you got in your seats, and we can't get a fucking 15 grand bike to fit us. I mean, come on.
It's probably worth noting like Cervelo's one example that's just recently started to do this, right? If I'm not mistaken.
You have to pay for labor.
Okay.
So, I mean, which is better than paying for a $700 handlebar. But as long as you change it within the first 30 days, the handlebar itself is free.
Gotcha. Okay.
I believe Scott also offered that with Addict. That as long as you take it to like a Scott retailer, you can get the bar swapped for no cost.
Yeah, I think this is probably like where like a really good bike fitter before you buy the bike comes in, where you can get a high level of confidence that you're getting the right stem and bar and all that, and the shop then shouldn't be charging you extra labor to swap something out on an unbuilt bike. It should just be an upfront cost. So I think rather what we're talking about is like person buys the bike off the shelf, doesn't have a correct bike fit or a detailed bike fit done, and then 2 or 3 weeks later decides that it's too long or too short for them, and then has to pony up and get a whole new handlebar. And I think that's kind of a backwards way of doing things these days because of the cost of these things. I think that sort of change of process is sort of what's needed here.
And it may just also be like, you've maxed out your credit card buying the bike. You can't afford a bike fit for another 2-3 months, maybe a year, whatever, like it. And at that point, then you go, oh, by the way, that stem's entirely wrong. I can appreciate that's not the manufacturer's fault at that point, but it is the sort of situation that integrated bars and stems get us into. Yeah.
I mean, not to like go too far down this rabbit hole, but I think just with the integrated bikes, I think it's more important than ever if you can't afford to change out the bar, or you can't afford to get a bike fit, then maybe don't buy the bike.
And I would also add to this that it's important for the brands to stock these, like, even more important for the brands that if they offer only one-piece cockpits, they need to have all the sizes in stock.
Yeah.
You cannot sell the bikes and just not have the 3 small sizes. And the same with Scott. I know, Alex, when we reviewed the Addict RC, I talked with my local dealer about it as well, and they said, like, yeah, you can, like, we'll swap it, but we haven't, like, Scott hasn't had these and this sizes in stock for months. So it's, yes, they would do it, but the brand doesn't even have that cockpit, which leaves the customer, again, you cannot ride the bike without the cockpit. And then if you get the right size cockpit, what are you going to do? You just won't buy the bike because you can't ride it without, because the steerer is some weird size that you can't fit a regular bar and stem on. And it's like a whole...
But they have the cockpit on paper, and they have the option on paper to get it changed whenever you want. But in reality, it's the reality that we're talking about here. The reality needs to be that you walk into a bike shop, the same bike shop that has the 15 grand bike sitting on the shop floor. You know, whether it comes down to the manufacturer or the shop, I don't know. But in some way, shape, or form, there needs to be an option there and then to have the bike fit you. Like, can you imagine you couldn't adjust the steering wheel position of your car? Come on. You know,
Alex?
Yeah, I think this is something that I thought about, and it'll be in the review for the Van Rysel RCRF when that comes out shortly. But that's one bike where they don't even offer the option to get a different cockpit than the one that comes with the bike. So if you need a different stem length or a different bar width, you're looking aftermarket. You can't get the cockpit that came stocked on the bike, and considering that's, I think, equivalent of like 23 or 25% of the aero gains they're claiming, it just seems like a misstep to not be able to allow consumers to get a bar that fits them.
I think on that bike though, the tops of the handlebar is so deep that it's basically got like a equivalent 70 to 130 mil stem fitted on every side.
I was just actually bringing those up because potentially those handlebars are actually illegal now. It's only just popped into my mind when you mentioned it there, Alex. But yeah, we can come back to that another time, and just a way to Google some dimensions.
Why would they be illegal?
Isn't there a new like cord length? Like you can only have a 65 mil deep profile on the handlebars now.
Oh, I thought the 65 mil was flare difference.
No, I think there's another one on in terms of it may only apply to time trial bikes. I need to double check all this, but yeah, it's just popped into my head now as Alex was talking.
It baffled me to discover that swapping out your bars wasn't an option for that bike, especially, like I say, you'll find out all about it in the review, but there are some fit issues, especially in the smaller sizes with that bike, and being able to switch out the bars would have at least gone some way to maybe correct this for some people.
Well, yeah, looking forward to that one. I know that review is near. Well, if you're hearing this is the end of the free episode. There's plenty more after this, including more about the bikes we've been testing, some products we've been liking and wanting to spend more time on, and, of course, a few products that have left us a little bit underwhelmed or perhaps maybe wanting a little bit more of. So yeah, all of that and more for members of Escape Collective. So if you're not a member and you're hearing this message, do head to escapecollective.com/join and consider becoming a member. And then from there, it'll just be a few quick steps. It'll take about a minute or two, and then you'll get access to the members only feed, which can stay in your podcast player of choice and give you access to everything we do easily and just as you access this podcast. Cheers. Thanks to Will Jones of Red Bricks Media for the editing and mixing of this episode.